I think that's something that we see too little of in AI right now is that collaborative nature. So many of these tools are built for one person interacting just with the computer, but when they're solving actual social problems, like how do we share information, that's where the possibilities really get interesting. It seems like their superpower, as often many founders find, is like, oh, do I have a connection already? Who do I have? Where am I already involved in communities where you're able to better predict what they actually really need too?
With the pace of change now, it's just so important to just try and build something or build a lot of things and learn that way. And that's all valuable experience that you can then bring into whatever your next opportunity is.
Welcome to another episode of AI Product Leader. Every week we shine a light on what it really takes to join the AI world. Real conversations with real AI leaders, founders, product leaders, AI experts, technologists, and everything in between to understand where the world of AI is right now and what that path looks like, whether you're building AI products or navigating a career in AI. I'm your host, Polly Allen. I'm founder of AI Career Boost, where I spend my time helping product leaders navigate the world of AI and thrive in leadership roles. And I've spent my career in both the product management and software development sides of the fence. I'm an ex-Alexa AI principal product manager, where I launched the very first generative AI answers on Alexa back in 2020. I'm super excited to have our guest joining us today, Kirstin Maurer. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Polly. I'm excited to be here.
Wonderful. When Kirstin's family faced ALS 2 decades ago, there was no AI systems to help them navigate it. So she's building one. As a founder of ALS Care Companion, she's developed a production AI system drawing from over 67 government and advocacy sources to give patients and caregivers 24/7 support during the hours when farms go quiet. That personal mission runs on top of 18 plus years of enterprise product depth. At Truepill, she drove a $20 million telehealth platform, tripled agent outreach productivity, and cut post-call documentation time by 75% with generative AI summaries, all while navigating high-trust compliance and partnering with teams like Mark Cuban Cost Plus Drugs and Eli Lilly. So before that, she spent nearly 8 years at Teradata, where she transformed the documentation platform into a growth engine with 200+% year-over-year traffic growth. A product leader who builds at the intersection of healthcare and AI, as well as human systems. She's even played rugby at UC San Diego. Kirstin, thanks so much for joining us today.
Awesome. Thanks for the intro, Polly. I'm happy to be here.
Wonderful. Well, that's quite the background. Like I said, you've got this depth in tech, in healthcare. Before you even joined AI, we'd love to just know a little bit more about you and your background. How did you go from rugby player to AI entrepreneur?
That's actually, I think it's a great segue. I always was into sports. I still use sports analogies all the time in my job, which I'm sure people love. But yeah, my first job out of school at UC San Diego was with a sports and wellness startup. And I was initially attracted to the role because it was in sports. And I worked on the scheduling, registration, and risk management platforms there with clients. And I think that was really sort of the nexus of my sort of getting bit by the product management bug. I learned that, there are a lot of complicated problems that could be solved with the right technology. And working in sports was a fun way, to spend my early career years and get that start there.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
And so from there, you'd moved on and dealt with more documentation platforms, et cetera. Tell us a little more.
Yeah. So post startup life at Active, I ended up moving over to Teradata, which was a very different company. Had a much longer lifetime, a lot more embedded, and it was really, dealing with enterprise scale, high stakes data problems.
Yeah.
I first started working on the master and reference data management system. So on the analytic application side of the house, in product there. And then there was this problem that we had with the product technical content for the company, which was really valuable information that the clients needed access to, but it was really difficult to find. It's all inside of these PDFs that are published with every version, and working for an enterprise company where you're doing these extensive releases on a biannual cadence. It's really important, right, that content be visible and findable.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But we encountered this sort of SEO problem, right, where we had content in these PDFs. The content that was most popular was the content that had been around the longest and not necessarily the most recent, right?
Yeah.
And so so I got involved with that team and had to dive deep into SEO for a problem space that really it wasn't intended for, right? SEO, when we think of SEO, it's more on the marketing side and using it as a growth funnel. And so the opportunity here was really using it to better serve our clients and make sure that they had easy access to the information that they needed. And I really didn't obviously know that and have the foresight at the time, but that's the same problem that I would end up solving years later with this ALS companion.
Yeah, I'd love, let's dive right into it. I'd love to hear if you can tell us a little more about the
Yeah.
motivation behind the ALS companion, how that was born.
Yeah. I think just to kind of thread the needle a little bit. So after my time at Teradata, the pandemic hit and I was wrapping up my time there, had my first child, and I was really looking for a way to have a more tangible impact with my day-to-day work. I think like a lot of people at that time.
Yeah.
And that sort of pushed me into health tech, right? And that's how I ended up at Truepill and working on the EHR system there, which we sort of rolled into this patient care manager to serve vulnerable populations for patients who were recently discharged from the hospital in the emergency room, with a virtual care model to sort of connect them then to care in the community that wasn't so reliant on the hospital system, and make sure that they were seeing the specialists and had the support that they needed to transition at home and recover. And so, yeah, so that was sort of how I ended up in health tech. And then to come back around, I think to your question around, well, how did that translate to this new project in the ALS space, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So, sorry, I glossed over it. Absolutely. So that familiarity with the problems of people who are just adjacent to that healthcare system, right? Who are like maybe like while you're in the
Yeah.
healthcare system, X happens, but then afterwards,
Yeah. And there's so much, right? There's so much that already falls on the clinician and the care team. And so I think being close to that problem from just like my work,
yeah,
and then also with our family's experience. So, my uncle was first diagnosed with ALS in 2005. 20 years later, his sister was diagnosed. They were both my mom's siblings. And so as I was diving deep now into learning as much as I could about AI, and looking for a valuable problem to help solve and sort of prove my own knowledge and build my own skill set, this sort of fell in my lap in a way, because I just sort of had this epiphany that I should pick a problem that nobody's solved yet, but that, AI could really accelerate.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's how I landed there.
I was just speaking this morning on a different podcast actually about people keep looking for where are the new problems to solve, like AI is just for AI efficiency and like automation. And I actually brought up ALS Care Companion as an example because you're like, oh, this might have been something that like the math wouldn't necessarily have made sense before
Yeah.
to go develop this.
Yeah.
It's a
Oh,
startup and
yeah.
100 grand.
Yeah. I mean, I've, self-funded a project to build something, and it's been, affordable for me to do, as I guess you would call it, like an initial hobby, right? Like it was an experiment for me.
Yeah.
And, if I were thinking about it purely from a business perspective, that might not be the market that I would choose to tackle, right? But this is something that, because of all of the capabilities now with AI, I could build myself now that I have these skills in a way that the math was really not part of the equation in terms of, is this something that's valuable? Can I build it? And will it help people?
We're getting a little ahead of ourselves. We haven't explained what ALS Care Companion is. Can you tell us a little more about the platform and how it works?
Yeah. Yeah. So essentially, it's intended to be sort of a care navigation companion system that people with ALS, their families and caregivers can interact with, that's available 24/7, just using natural language queries, right? So, today I know a lot of clinicians and, my doctor or pediatricians will tell me, don't go to Google.
Right.
If you have these symptoms or you have these questions, Google should not be your first stop, right? Because, you could be getting any kind of information. Yeah, exactly. So using only vetted sources from trusted organizations, right, to help answer these questions. And so So it's essentially a closed knowledge base,
Yeah.
right? Where, I've curated and chosen this is the content that I think is going to be the most valuable. And then using generative AI to answer the specific questions that come from this group of users at their point in time of need.
Oh, amazing. And so being able to answer their questions in a way that they can trust better than Google, does it go beyond QA as well?
Well, yeah, sorry, I was thinking about QA in terms of software development. Let me reframe that.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
Question answering, I should have mentioned.
yeah, no, that's a great question. Yeah, so I think initially when I built that, I thought, oh, well, this could be like a companion in the sense of like, I have a physical notebook that comes to the doctor's office for these visits, right? Or I know, watching family members and friends go through diagnoses and this maze of a roadmap to deal with and binders full of information, right? Like this could be a companion where, you might have a question today and you might surface some information, but it's not immediately relevant. So you can just save it right in this companion and come back to it later or share it with somebody else, part of your sort of like care circle.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. That's awesome. I think that's something that we see too little of in AI right now, is that like collaborative nature. So many of these tools are built for like one person interacting just with the computer. But when you're solving actual like social problems of like how do we share information, that's where the possibilities really get interesting.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So you're building ALS Care Companion. You have an upcoming webinar too with the ALS Society. They've actually reached out. How did that come about?
Yeah. So when I launched this tool, I thought we've got to get some users in here to test it and give us feedback. And so right now we're kind of wrapping up this beta period where we had 50 families sign up to use the tool and have provided some feedback.
Amazing.
Have a lot of learnings.
Yeah.
Maybe about what I would have conventionally thought about launching a software product, and what I'm seeing in terms of like the usage patterns and things like that here is a little bit different. But yeah, I mean, I think the tool has sort of made some rounds, and the ALS Association reached out to me recently to partner on a webinar that they have coming up for essentially, their membership up in June to share information about AI and just like security awareness, with what's available
And within healthcare. Amazing. Oh, that's awesome. We'll be sure to include the link to it in the show notes. If people are interested in tuning in. That'll be fascinating. Do you mind sharing, how did you get it in the hands of 50 people? A lot of folks now are like, I can build something, but I can't actually get people to use it.
Yes. And this was also advice that I got from a good mentor, was like, this is going to be your next challenge, right? And I think my sort of going in, what I was concerned about initially in building this was like, do I have the technical capability now to do this on my own? And I was really concerned with answering that question.
Yeah.
And then I got to the point of like, oh, okay, like I have this thing, now what do I do? Right. And so that was sort of his call out too, was like, you've got to figure out a way now to get this tool into the hands of people who really need it. And so for me at this point, like I have not run like extensive marketing campaigns. It's really been working through personal networks to get the word out that this is available. I'm looking for feedback. It started with some folks that, maybe were OTs or physical therapists, speech pathologists, folks that are in like caregiving the space anyway, or nursing backgrounds. And then it's just sort of grown from there. I think, part of the inception of this whole project too was like, because of my mom's experience and proximity to this disease, like she's a little bit of a lightning rod in the community too, because now it's something where if it does come up in conversation, she's had this experience to share with someone else. And oftentimes when you're learning about that, like that's sort of a natural connection point. And so that's been another sort of foray. I think because this is a personal experience for our family, it's been different than trying to get the word out about something that is impersonal in another sense, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
It seems like, but that's your superpower. And often many founders find is like, oh, who do I have a connection with already? Who do I have? Where am I really involved in communities where you're able to better predict what they actually really need too?
Yeah.
Amazing. That's awesome. So, as well as all this work you've been doing for ALS Care Companion, you've recently started a new role, right? Your first director level
Yes.
role.
Yes. Yep.
Awesome. Can you tell us a little
Yep.
bit about the challenges you'll be facing there?
Yes. I mean, I think that it's similar challenges that a lot of folks in tech and health tech in particular are facing, right? Which is how to leverage AI to help scale and grow the business and keeping patient care
Yeah.
at the center of everything that you do, right? And I think that will still be a big part of my mission in this new role. And I think, you mentioned this earlier about like looking for new problems for AI to solve. I think we have plenty of problems in healthcare where we can apply AI to do things and be more effective and provide a better experience for patients and for clinicians.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm most excited about.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Well, I'm really excited for you in this new role, and it's quite the transformation. So, you had used AI in previous roles, as I mentioned at Truepill. You'd been working with generative AI and things like that. But it sounds like to go
Yeah.
from hey, I've led a couple of features to like developing your own products or these director level responsibilities. What do you
Yeah.
think was responsible for that path? How did you take on that like getting to the next level?
I would say that I went from a casual AI user,
Mhm.
more for like personal productivity, research, um, sort of brainstorming, right, in my role, um, to like really having to like jump in the deep end of the pool,
Yeah.
and really live and breathe and learn as much as I could, in order to kind of come out the other side of that. So, when I wrapped up my time at my last job, I really like dove in head first. Um, I think felt a little bit out of my depth for sure.
Hmm.
But with encouragement from some trusted mentors that like, listen, you can figure this out. Like you can learn anything. We know that's like kind of your superpower. And so just trust yourself and trust the process. And so I had some recommendations for your course
Mm.
and for another course on Maven, the problem first AI
Probably first AI.
cohort.
Yeah.
Yeah. And initially I was like, do I need to do both of these? Should I be doing both of them at the same time? And I think that just helped me because different instructors have their own different experience that they bring to courses and exercises and just different life experience, right? And I think that we see that when there's a diversity of thought, a diversity of experience, all of that is so valuable. And so that was, I think, partly for me what was such an accelerator, was getting practical guidance and sort of real-time coaching. I think especially with your group it was a smaller group, and so there was really more of like that personal approach which was helpful, and so that's I think what helped me sort of accelerate into the space, and then obviously getting to the point where I felt very capable, um, and building something that is very valuable.
Yeah. And you feel confident launching. You're not worried, oh, can I maintain this later? Can I do this? Amazing. Well, and I'd love to hear. I know a lot of folks will be looking to follow in your footsteps. Can you tell us any advice you'd give to them for like for that journey of like, hey, I want to up level in my career. I want to use AI to do it.
Probably the thing that has stood out most to me and the advice that I would give anybody in this space is like pick a real problem,
Mhm.
um, and something that like you're motivated to solve for whatever reason, right? And what a better way to upskill and up level, and be motivated to solve something that is like meaningful to you. And it doesn't have to be, for many of us, it's not going to be curing cancer, right? But it might be something that is a really onerous process for you if you're, managing your family life, right? I know there's a lot of people dealing with those challenges and trying to balance those commitments with work, or if it's something, like in the healthcare space or somewhere else, like picking something that's personal that you already understand deeply and then figuring out how to apply AI and technology to help solve that.
Oh, incredible. That's absolutely fantastic advice. And in terms of the things that are really hitting with employers right now, what do you see is giving you an advantage over some of the other candidates?
I think it's that like personal experience, right? And I do think that I would say it's like a tough market, and I don't think that's news to anybody. And I think that puts job seekers in a position where, you're kind of trying to thread the needle in terms of what you bring to the table and how you can relate it to what the role might be asking for. And I think, for me, I found that like there can be a really great match for you. And just because there are some things along the way that maybe like weren't a great fit or weren't a perfect fit, right? Like keep looking.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately it's like really trying to find that connection to something that like you can speak passionately about in an interview setting, right? Like, because if it's a problem, like there's things that we can talk about in terms of like our formal work experience and, at this company, I did this thing and here were, here were the metrics that unlocked, and all of that is important, I think, to be able to speak to. But at the same time, being able to like be conversant about something that you're passionate about and then use that to articulate your skill set, I think can also be valuable if you're not getting all of that experience through your current job too.
Work. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
What about the importance of getting actually hands-on? Do you feel like having built a system that's out there in the wild helped you in your interviews?
1,000,000%. Yes. I mean, even if it didn't necessarily stand out to the interviewer, I think it changed how I think about myself and approaching these roles and my own capacity and like the value that I can bring to an organization.
Yeah.
Right. I think, before I started this journey, and like I said, when I was more of like a casual user, I probably had a level of confidence that like I could learn something. But with the pace of change now, I think it's just so important to just try and build something or build a lot of things and learn that way. And that's all valuable experience that you can then bring into whatever your next opportunity is.
100%. Amazing. Well, that's an amazing note to end on. So we have time for one last section, and that is plugs. I'm assuming, Kirstin, you'd love to. We're looking for more users for ALS Care Companion.
Yep.
How can people try it out? How can they get a hold of you if they're interested in helping out or joining in?
Yeah, definitely. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm sure Polly will plug that in the show notes. And if you want to check out the website, it's free to sign up and free to use. It's alscompanion.org. So you can find us there. And then I will be presenting on a webinar with the ALS Association coming up in June.
Amazing. We'll be sure to drop that link. I want to check this out as well to see what is going on for real in healthcare. There's a lot of hype out there about what's possible and then what's real. Fantastic. Yeah. On my side, we always love to plug. We have our masterclass available online right now. It's available as a replay if you want to catch the last one. So it's how to become an indispensable AI product leader. Do catch that online. Again, we'll link below in the show notes. And as always, like and subscribe to the podcast if it's valuable to you, if you like hearing the stories of real product leaders in the wild. Thanks so much for joining us again, Kirstin. This has been really interesting to dive so deep with someone who's built so much, and really excited to see where all of this takes you next.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Polly.
Wonderful. That's our AI Product Leader podcast for this week. Thanks so much. We'll see you in a couple weeks.